All right, what's up and how's it going, guys? I am your host, Jacob Nestor. I came out to the world, but I'm back in the closet to discuss some movies. As usual, my constant co-host isn't here. Nick he was busy tonight. He had to go and do something, but last minute effort. I thank God. Got my buddy August to hop on here. So August, what's up? How's it going, man?
Hey, it's going pretty great. I just with the recent move to Idaho, it's been pretty busy, and I'm glad to be here.
Right on. Yeah, I'm glad too. It's gonna be a good episode. We're obviously gonna be discussing our top three Christmas movies alongside a
Oh yeah.
review of the 1947 Miracle on 34th Street. But before all that, we're gonna go into the what we've been watching section. We are revising it a little bit starting now because in all the episodes, especially with doing the bi-weekly podcast, I watched so much shit and it really just got really rambly for me listing off all of these. So this beginning section is actually going to be called the notable watches section now. And so we'll be discussing 5 notable watches of the past 2 weeks, movies and TV shows, good or bad. So anyway, let's get right into it. August, you want to start with your notable watches recently?
Yeah, sure. The last movie I just watched was on Netflix called The Fundamentals of Caring.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
I've been wanting to check that
yeah,
out.
yeah. So Paul Rudd, Craig Roberts, and Selena Gomez are in it, and honestly, really enjoyed it. It's a very heartfelt kind of movie, very, very sweet. It goes over a lot of the complexities of family dynamics, even if you're not, related by blood. And um, I really would recommend you to watch it because it's just a very good, heartfelt kind of movie.
Right on. That's sick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
Um, I also watched, let's see, Dave, which is a show on Hulu. It follows the
mm,
life of Lil Dicky.
yep.
Um, yeah. If I had to mention something from that show, I'd say that, honestly, their banter when he's like with friends, super comedic, really funny.
Mm-hmm.
And he uses a lot of humor that, if I had to insults himself, but he does it in ways that it's like, um, dealing with insecurities.
For
And
sure.
so, oh yeah, great show.
Nice. Okay.
Also would really recommend it.
Okay. Okay. And that's on Hulu, I think.
Yep, that's on Hulu. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Let's see. And then uh, getting into some more anime topics on Crunchyroll. There's a show I've seen it before, but my roommate hadn't seen it, and so I thought they would like it. It's called The Promised Neverland.
Okay.
Um, it's an interesting anime because it starts out really pretty innocent with all these kids in an orphanage, and they're, they all love each other. They have this great family going on and whatnot, and I won't give away any spoilers or anything, but it gets very dark very quickly.
Okay. Okay.
And yeah, it definitely takes a turn for the worse, which I know a lot of people tend to enjoy in their, anime watching experiences, which is part of the reason I suggested we watch it. And
Mm-hmm.
my roommate Peyton, she was like, "Oh yeah," and she did actually really like it, and really get into it.
Nice. I'm glad. Yeah.
Hmm.
I've heard about that one a lot. Another show that I've heard a lot about. Been meaning to check it out, but I haven't yet.
Yeah, it's great. It's only 12 episodes long,
Cool.
22 minutes an episode, so it's pretty short series, pretty bingeable.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Um, yeah. Another anime I watched, and this one is actually a little bit out of character for me. I tend to steer away from like romance type anime, but I ended up getting some spam email from Crunchyroll and then just was like, whatever. And I just clicked on it because I was curious. And then it came up and it said that it just released the last episode of Tanikawa Over the Moon for You. And when I went through and I just read the brief little description, I was like, that sounds like it could be funny. It could be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started watching it, and 10 out of 10, sweetest romance anime I've ever seen. Oh my God. The
Awesome.
whole time I was just like, oh, like I wish I had that kind of romance in my life. You know what
That's
I'm
awesome. Yeah.
saying? And I ended up actually binging the whole thing. It's 12 episodes, another binge worthy. And I just sat through and I watched all 12 episodes right then and there. Um,
Nice.
really great. Would recommend. Can't wait for the second season to come out.
Mm-hmm. Right on. Nice.
And then the last thing is a sitcom on Netflix that I kind of started rewatching. This one, it's called Disjointed. The
Okay.
first one I went through and I watched the show. I loved it, and it's a sitcom it has to do with the owners of this dispensary
Mm-hmm.
and how weed was recently legalized there in their state. And there's a lot of very comedic tropes that they like to bring up, both in the smoking community and otherwise. Um, However, I started rewatching it because my roommate wanted to watch it, and the first time I went through and I watched it, I was blazed like the whole time,
Uh huh.
and I had a great time. I loved the show, so funny. I couldn't stop myself from laughing all the time. Although on the second watch around, not a huge fan. I don't know if it's necessarily just because I've already seen it and it's just not as funny to me, or if it's because I'm not blazed out of my brains. But
Yeah.
honestly, at most, I give it like a 5.5 to 6 out of 10 if I
For
were to rate
sure.
it.
Yeah.
So,
There's a big thing that's unfortunate with a lot of stoner comedies where they are just substantially better when you're high, you know?
oh, 100%.
What I'm not sure if I do consider that a downside. It's almost kind of a part of the genre in a way, but at
Yeah,
the same
it's part of
time,
the experience.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, I've heard of that one as well. But nice. Anyway, that's the
Yeah,
end of
so
your
those
list.
are the last 5 shows slash movies I've seen past couple days.
Dope. Right on. Sounds good. I also wanted to mention before I go into my list, just because I forgot to, because I'm very spacey. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
for since we're doing the notable watches, instead of the full what we've been watching section anymore, and I still do want to just briefly talk about all the random shit that I watch these days. I am gonna have a new series on YouTube airing the first week of every month. It'll be what I watched the previous month. And so I'll go over
Hmm.
every single movie I watched the previous month, either a longer review on it or like a super short review, just, whatever I'm kind of feeling in the moment. But
You watch a
so,
lot of movies in a month too, though.
yes, yeah. So it won't be like a crazy long video. I'm not going to go like in depth. I'm going to keep it completely spoiler free as well for all
Mm,
those movies. So it won't be
excellent.
super long. But yeah, first week of January, that'll be airing with all this shit that I've watched this December, all of it. But anyway, getting into
I
the
look
stuff
forward
that
to it.
yeah, getting into the stuff that I wanted to shout out that I've been watching recently. First, I kicked it off with Collateral. This is a 2002, I think, Michael Mann movie with Tom Cruise and Jamie Foxx starring in it. And this
Hmm.
movie kicks so much ass. It is so fucking good. I so the first Michael Mann movie I saw was Heat, and it's a very highly regarded, famous movie. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't finish it. I got halfway through and I was super fucking bored and didn't finish it. So I'm so
Mm.
sorry to all the Heat fans out there. After watching Collateral, I will give Heat another chance because of how much I love this movie, top to bottom. It is just so tight and so well constructed, and it's just those two characters of Jamie Foxx and Tom Cruise are so interesting. Seeing Tom Cruise play a villain is something that I don't think I've ever seen, and he does a great job at it. And there's lots of just people talking in car scenes, which I really love to see. So great movie, can't recommend Collateral enough. Then after that, I caught Frailty. This movie, I caught this with my uncle. I knew nothing about this movie going into it. So I'm looking down because I'm looking up right now. It was 2001. That's right, and it was starring Bill Paxton, and it also Bill Paxton directed it, which is kind of crazy. I think it was probably the only movie he ever directed, and it's a really interesting movie. It's kind of one of those movies where it is all like a lead up to the big kind of twist at the end, and that works for some people. It doesn't work for some people, but I really liked it. I thought it worked really well. I thought the twist was cool and interesting, even though it wasn't like mind blowing. I still thought the way it recontextualized a lot of the other scenes in the movie was really cool, And even without that, just throughout the movie, there's a lot of really great intensity throughout and character building and a lot of really cool transitions, which was just fun to watch. Because it's a guy telling a story to somebody and then flashbacks to the story, and so it's just cutting in between those with some really funny little transitions, which is kind of fun to do.
I, for one, am definitely someone that loves those kinds of movies, so I think that might be one I'll have to look into myself.
Yeah, it's fun. It's like a religious movie. I don't know. It's not like a religious movie in the sense of like pro Christianity, I guess.
Right.
But it has like a lot of like religious themes and like has a lot of characters doing stuff based on religion, I guess. It's an interesting movie.
Yeah, for any of your listeners too that I guess wouldn't know me, but I grew up in a very conservative household, so I know quite a bit about religion, and that might be I think you'd be nerd out to.
I think you'd be interested in this movie. It's pretty fucking dark. It's very dark. There's some really fucked up stuff that goes on to it, but it's pretty fucking cool. I really, really enjoyed it.
Nice. What else
anyway, after that, I caught Sound of Metal. Oh my god, this movie. So this is a 2020 release starring Riz Ahmed, Olivia Cook, two actors who I absolutely love. It's about a drummer who loses his hearing, and it's incredible. It's one of my favorite movies of the year. I'm going to be talking about it a lot more on our next episode probably, but this movie kicks so much ass. It's on Amazon Prime. It is so sad and hard to watch at times, but it ends on a really beautiful melancholy note that has maybe one of my favorite last shots of the year. This and First Cow are debating for my favorite last shot of the year. It's just so nice, and it's just a really, really incredibly well-made movie. The way it uses sound in this movie is pretty unreal. The sound mixing and editing, because it shows you going in between how he hears, because he's not completely deaf, but he's like basically deaf, and shifting perspectives with that during the scenes to make some really, really interesting scenes. A lot of the movie is like no dialogue really going on, and just perfectly though shows the emotion that in everything that's going on in every single scene, not only through their facial expressions and their body movement, but the incredible sound design. And it's just such a cool movie. It's really great when you see a new movie and you get that feeling of like, wow, I've never seen anything like this, and it really falls into that category. It's awesome.
And that sounds like it was really creatively made, and
I'm pretty sure
like it would be a good movie.
I'm pretty sure it's a directorial debut too, which is just crazy.
Really?
Like, good for you,
That's
man. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm pretty sure it is, and it's fucking awesome. And last, I just wanted to shout out Paul Raci in this movie. He's an actor. I don't think he's really acted in much else. He's mainly known for he plays in a metal band so he is a real life person who lives with I guess the disability of being deaf, and they use like his real life story of how he became deaf for his character in the movie, which is kind of cool. And so he's known for he plays in a metal band and they perform in ASL, which is, I don't really know how that works. I've just heard about it when discussions of this movie and him, and I think that's just fucking awesome. That's just a really cool thing. And he gives probably the best supporting actor performance of the year. It's pretty unreal, some of the emotion that he gives in some of these scenes. It's just a awesome movie, and I'm excited to talk about it more on my year-end list. But
well, that kind of reminds me that I've seen a movie that was very similar to that, and you'll have to, I'm sure you've heard of it. I don't know if it would be considered a thriller or a horror movie, but it's a lady, she's deaf, and she lives out in a cabin out in the fucking middle of nowhere. Yes, Hush. Yep. Thank you. I've seen Hush. Hush is a great movie.
Hush is awesome. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Me and Nick have talked about Hush quite a bit on a past episode. because it's directed by Mike Flanagan, who's a director that me and him love, who also did Haunting of Bly Manor and Haunting at Hill House as well. Those great shows on Netflix. But
love Haunting of Hill House. I think I've seen Haunting of Hill House all the way through 3 times now.
I haven't seen it yet. I've only seen Haunting of Bly Manor, and I definitely want to check out Hill House now. I have yet to.
Yeah.
But yeah, Hush is also an awesome movie, but it doesn't deal with the really, really cool sound design that this movie does, which is not a slight to Hush at all, but it just makes Sound of Metal even fucking cooler, I think. But anyway,
awesome.
What else you got? After that, I caught It's a Wonderful Life. This is a really famous classic Christmas movie starring James Stewart, directed by Frank Capra, classic Hollywood movie. I didn't like it. I'm sorry.
You didn't like it?
I'm sorry to all the It's a Wonderful Life fans out there who go crazy for this movie. I was not a fan of this movie.
Can you talk about a little bit why you didn't like it? I actually haven't seen it, but I've been meaning to watch it.
Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't say I don't recommend it, just because I know so many people who love this movie. So I won't say I don't recommend this movie. And there are certainly some merits to it. There were some scenes that I really did enjoy. James Stewart gives a really interesting performance, I think. And I think the message that the movie comes across and tries to convey is good and comes across very strong, and a message that I really agree with and love. But when it really comes down to it, the script is just really, really bad in this movie, I think. It is just fucking horribly written. So many random character beats, I think, are just poorly done and just strange and don't fit. And, like, sometimes there'd be a scene I'd really loving, and then something kind of would shift. Most notably, you'll recognize it if you've seen the movie, the Lasso the Moon scene is a really, like, beautiful, touching scene. And then the way it kind of ends, I found kind of gross and disturbing and weird, and made me really dislike our main character. I can't remember it. George Bailey was his name in the movie. And just more scenes like that throughout that would just make me increasingly uninterested, and also just, like, angry over dumb character and story beats. And then finally, at one point, what kicks off the, like, main third act of the movie, a certain character accidentally hands another character a large sum of money. Like, he accidentally passes it on to him, whatever. And then he starts freaking out about where the money is. And instead of going and talking to that guy, because he handed him a newspaper, and in the newspaper he accidentally had the money in it.
Yeah,
instead of like talking to the one guy he just saw and just, like, handed him something, he just freaks out, and, like, they don't find the money. And, like, it, from that point on, I completely checked out of the movie, because that was so fucking...
So did he just not realize they left it in the newspaper, or did
he thought he lost it or misplaced it somewhere. Like, it didn't even cross his mind that he accidentally passed it on to this guy who he just talked to and handed something to, which I found very fucking stupid. And really,
honestly though, that sounds like the stupid kind of thing I would do too. Like, I don't know,
fair.
I'm super forgetful and whatnot. And,
it's just like the way it was,
to do that.
Yeah, the way it was done in the movie, I just thought it felt really, really dumb. And the fact that it also started to set off the main conflict of the movie, just made me completely lose interest in the entire third act of this movie. And it just wasn't my thing. I'm sorry. I love you, James Stewart. You're great. Yeah, God bless you and all the great roles that you've done. Frank Capra as well, an incredible classic Hollywood director. But yeah, It's a Wonderful Life is just not my thing. I did not think it was very good. But anyway, to end on a better note, the last thing I wanted to shout out is Klaus. Klaus is a 2019 released Netflix movie. It's a animated Christmas movie, and it's absolutely delightful. The animation is so spectacular and beautiful, It's just really, really captivating. It's like a mix of hand drawn and 3D animation, but it does it really seamlessly and does it in a really cool way that I think is just beautiful to look at. And there's some really solid points in the movie that are pretty dumb, like some like kind of the issues I had with It's a Wonderful Life as well, of plot points and character points that I thought were just poorly written and kind of dumb. And there like some dramatic scenes where there was no dramatic tension at all, but like they tried to force you to make it feel that way, I guess. You know what I'm talking about if you watched it.
Yeah.
But it's like there's no dramatic tension right here. But by the way it's like shot in the music, I can tell it wants me to feel this way. I am not. It shouldn't be at all.
It wasn't necessarily natural to feel that way. It
exactly.
was pretty forced.
Yeah. Okay. But on the other half, I did totally cry at a few parts. And the relationship between our main character, the postman, and Klaus is really beautiful. And it's a really cool story, an interesting take on Christmas. It's completely different from any other tale of like how Christmas came to be or like what Christmas is and such, because it's all about like the making of Christmas. Like Christmas wasn't really what it is now in this universe before the actions of this movie. And it's a really cool story, and I think it's really well done, and it's really just anchored down by the relationship between our main character and Klaus. They're just such well fleshed out, interesting characters, and they're just an absolute treat to watch. It's a really delightful, nice movie, I think. Definitely check out Klaus. That's on Netflix. Oh, anyway, that's going to wrap up the notable watches section. Check out any of those movies. Don't check out It's a Wonderful Life. Just kidding. Check out all those movies and TV shows. And let's fucking get on with it to what we're really talking about. This is the Christmas-themed episode. August has got on his Christmas Santa hat with the awesome Yoda ears and the Christmas. Oh, I forgot. I wanted to show off. I got my Christmas joggers on. Hold on. Hopefully this doesn't.
Yeah, let's see those bad boys.
Look at. Ooh. Sorry for the audio listeners who can't see this. Go check it out on YouTube. But yeah, these Christmas joggers.
Truest fans will be checking out the YouTube because those are some awesome fans.
Yeah, thank you. We get way more fucking listens on YouTube anyway. So realistically, everyone's gonna see it on there anyway. So check it out.
Need to see your beautiful face.
Exactly. Who can resist? And seeing this closet, I mean, it's way too cool. Anyway, of course, we're gonna go into the topic of the week, which is our top 3 Christmas movies. And I do want to do a disclaimer. Christmas movies are movies that take place in or around Christmas Day or the Christmas season. And so if you don't agree with that definition of a Christmas movie, start your own fucking podcast and make a list, because this is my podcast. So I'm going to do what I want, and I'm going to make my Christmas list like I want. So fuck off. And anyway, nice. After I insult all my listeners, as I always do, let's get right on into it. August, you want to start with your third favorite Christmas movie? It doesn't, mine aren't really ranked anyway. I love them all equally the same. But your third.
I have 3 Christmas movies I showed up with today, and I do have a pretty good idea for ranking.
Okay. Let's start at the bottom.
Third, So for third, I'm just gonna I'll have to put Elf there. I loved Elf the first few times I've watched it. It was. It's a great movie, obviously. I mean, I hardly know anyone that hasn't seen it, and it's funny, it's heartfelt, it's you gotta love, our main character, and he's just so lovably uncultured, The reason it's on the third of my list, though, simply is just because, growing up and in school, whatever, it's like right up there with Nemo. I've seen it so many times, more times than I can count. And after watching it so many times, it grows old.
Yeah.
And so, had I just watched Elf like an hour ago, it might be on the top of my list. But because of those reasons, it's third.
Yeah. Right on. Nice. Yeah, Elf is an absolute classic, and I was really debating putting it on my list, but these three for me really defined the Christmas season and my Christmas watching for me personally. So I gotta start with the one, the only, Die Hard, of course. Die Hard. If you don't think Die Hard is a Christmas movie, you're just wrong. The entire plot completely revolves around a Christmas party and would not happen at all if it wasn't during Christmas time. It's also a key reason why the robbers are robbing the tower and doing their act, because the little amount of people that will be in the building during the Christmas party is explained in the movie. If you don't think it's a Christmas movie, you're wrong. You're just wrong. But this movie, Die Hard, it's a movie that I've watched every single Christmas season with my family that I endlessly love. It is the perfect action movie. I do think Die Hard is a perfect or near perfect movie, but it is an absolutely perfect action movie, top to bottom. Some kick-ass action that happens in it, just a great main character, a great story, an awesome villain. Alan Rickman is just so fucking good. And God, Die Hard is just awesome, man. It really is just such a strong movie. And I just have so much love for it.
Oh yeah, 100%. I agree with you.
Yeah. It's awesome. Check out Die Hard if you somehow haven't seen it now. It has some of just the best action ever out there. It's awesome. It's awesome. It's perfectly paced. Man, I can't say enough good things about it. Die Hard's sick. Anyway,
nice.
We'll move on to you. What's your number two? How about that?
All right, my number two is Home Alone, and I've Home Alone 1, 2, and 3. I just recently found out that there is a 4 and apparently a 5. I'm not gonna even. I'm probably never gonna watch them.
Yeah.
But Home Alone 1 definitely has a special place in my heart. So that was, man, that's it's tough because I have so many great things I want to talk about it. It's growing up when I was a kid, there's a lot of things in the movie that I felt I almost connected with. You could say the Home Alone aspect or whatever, but it was just, I watched it as a kid and I fell in love, and I watched it again when I got older, and it just, all the themes and everything else that are in it that are just, little boy, fighting for himself and keeping that Christmas, but he still has that like innocence of like setting up all these cool little traps and all these other things, and I just love it, and it really brings it home for me.
Right on. Nice. Yeah, Home Alone is great. Another movie, I really heavily debated putting on my list is a classic growing up in my household as well, Home Alone. I gotta say, I actually haven't seen Home Alone 2 or 3, which is kind of embarrassing.
I've seen Home Alone 2 once. I've seen Home Alone 3 a lot of times. We used to own Home Alone 3 on VHS.
Yeah.
And I watched a lot of VHS growing up.
Yep.
And so I've seen that movie a lot of times. And they use a different child actor for it. I don't know what the kid's name was, but as a kid I really liked it. I think that the third one is better than the second. Despite differences, but it's not bad. I'm not saying it was a 10 out of 10 movie or anything, but for what it is and for having 5 sequels, I think it was alright.
For sure. Nice. Right on. Yeah, I gotta check them out for sure. Anyway, moving on to my number 2 though. This is a movie that kickstarted not only my love and appreciation for Tim Burton, but also for Danny Elfman, a legendary composer, and one of my favorite mediums in movie making, which is stop motion, which it's got to be Nightmare Before Christmas. this movie is just so goddamn good, you know?
Great movie.
I've always been a massive fan of animated just things in general, animated movies and TV shows.
Of course.
And this was probably the first stop motion thing I ever saw, and I was just completely blown away with it, with just like the technical aspects of how it was made, and also just everything else, of course. This incredible story beats. Jack Skellington is just such an iconic character that's so cool, and this singing and music by Danny Elfman it rings in my head daily. You know, This Is Halloween is a track that I play from beginning of October till the end of December every single day, basically. I mean,
of course. Why wouldn't?
It's so impressive, not only for perfectly being a Halloween movie and a Christmas movie, and it just has so much heart in it, and it's just so well crafted, and you can just tell there is just so much love put into this movie. And also, I have to have a huge shout out to Henry Selick, who actually directed the movie. Yes, it is called Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas. It is his story, and he wrote it, but Henry Selick did direct it. And direction is a really important thing, and especially stop action movies, you know, those are so hard to make, and he really just brings such life behind the camera, and for some really just interesting, well-crafted scenes that are just absolutely timeless. And my love for The Night Before Christmas and stop motion animation and animation in general all have just grown immensely throughout the years, and yeah, I love that movie so much. Huge shout out to The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah, huge shout out to our boy Henry.
Absolutely. Henry Selick, fucking awesome. Great director, who also did Coraline, who people think Tim Burton did for no reason. Tim Burton didn't even write the story for it. Henry Selick directed it. He's great. He needs more credit, and the animation and the film industry in general, because Henry Selick's awesome.
Oh yeah.
That's my piece on that.
I actually have a little bit of a funny story.
Okay.
Funny, not funny, I don't know.
Okay.
The first time I watched Night Before Christmas, I was too young, and I actually, I had nightmares because of the claymation and the scary looking characters and everything else. I was just too young, and I must have been 6. I don't know. I mean, the movie's been out for a long time, and but then when I watched it later on in life, fucking loved the movie. Awesome. Loved it to death. The aspect of making a Halloween movie and a Christmas movie at once is just unheard of. Who would even think of that? You know? Yeah. And it's just
and there's lots of great Christmas horror movies, but the fact that this teeters the line of horror, Halloween, Christmas, musical, what?
And still somehow has that heartfelt Christmas aspect too.
And it perfectly balances all of those things. Yeah, and it just leaves just an absolute heartwarming feeling as well. Awesome. Perfect. Great movie. Shout out to that.
I agree.
Anyway, let's move on. You're number one.
Yeah, speaking of awesome heartfelt Christmas movies, the number one on my list is gotta be Miracle on 34th Street. And I had not seen this movie until an hour ago. And I had never seen it, and I watched it was the original version, the black and white version. And such an awesome movie. Everything that I would want and hope for in a Christmas movie, it had it all, you know.
Perfect.
And it was just and I remember watching it too, and it's still fresh in my mind. And I had forgotten how innocent times were back in the day. Because I remember the scenes where the mom didn't necessarily know where the little girl was, but then she was just hanging out with the single adult male neighbor, watching the parade.
That was a little sus.
Who the mother doesn't even know, and it's just that would never happen today.
Yeah.
You know? And it's just I don't know. It kind of reminded me of more innocent times.
Yeah.
And but great movie. I just even though it's in black and white, I felt especially.
Here, hold on. I'm gonna stop you. We'll talk about it more.
Okay.
That's
Okay,
enough.
good call.
Yeah. We'll save it so this isn't, because I can already tell this is gonna be way shorter of a podcast than our other ones. I don't want this to be too
Perfect.
short though, so we'll save it for when we actually go into the full on review of this movie into the next section. But yeah, great pick. I'm so glad that you loved it so much.
Loved it.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
But anyway, for me, my number one. This is definitely pretty out of left field. A movie that's probably not really considered a Christmas movie by a lot of people, but it does take place on Christmas Day, and there are key plot points that are essential to it. And it introduced me to one of my favorite writers alive right now, Martin McDonagh, who wrote and directed it. It's In Bruges. This movie is so goddamn good. I am obsessed with this movie. So I first came to Martin McDonagh through his movie Three Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri. Came out in 2017. Had like a big Oscar push. Watched it, loved it. So I dived into his other movies. He only made 2 more before Three Billboards, which is Seven Psychopaths, and In Bruges, which is his directorial debut after being a long-time famous playwright in London. And I just love it so much. It's anchored down by Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson, who play the 2 leads. They are great. It's about 2 hitmen who fuck up on a job, and they gotta go lay low in a small Belgian town called Bruges. And Colin Farrell gives the performance of his life. He is so goddamn funny in this movie. It's kind of interesting because it is one of those movies where it's like true dark humor, not just edgy trolls being racist and misogynistic, It's like actually dark humor, while not being like offensive, which is a great feeling because I love that type of humor, and it really perfects it to a T. And there's just so many sequences in this movie that are just so quotable for me, and I rewatch it every year. Such a perfect script, and I love Martin McDonagh and Colin Farrell, and it's by far my favorite Christmas movie. It's just so funny and so dark, but it really has a lot of heart to it, and it's a really like poetic movie. And the way that it's constructed, and it's all about morality and showing the different sides of morality and such. And I think it's done in a really engaging way, and it has one of my favorite final lines of all movies, period. Which is I really wished actually, I'm gonna quote it wrong, so I'm not even gonna say it. So I'm gonna completely misquote it. I was literally about to do it. I'm already misquoting it. So watch the movie and figure out what that final line is. But it's awesome. I love In Bruges so much. I just think it's a great movie, and if you're really into that kind of twisted type of humor, highly recommend this movie. It's just awesome, top to bottom. Anyway, though, that's going to be it. That's going to close out our topic of the week. Let's run them back down one more time. August, you want to run down your list, just top to bottom real quick?
Yeah, the 3 Christmas movies?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So my third was Elf. My second was Home Alone, and my first was Miracle on 34th Street.
Nice, yeah. And I'll go bottom to top as well. I went Die Hard, The Nightmare Before Christmas, and In Bruges. So highly recommend all of those movies that we talked about alongside those movies that we talked about in the notable watches section. We're going to take a little intermission break right now as per usual, and then we will go into our in-depth spoilers thoughts on the 1947 version, Miracle on 34th Street. Stay tuned. Hey guys, a little intermission. Just want to remind you to stick till the end of the episode if you want to hear what we're going to be talking about next show. This is officially a bi-weekly podcast now. It will be out in 2 weeks. And so stay until the end of this episode if you want to join in on the conversation and DM in response to the topic or the review. And also, I just want to give a huge shout out to Anchor. As always, Anchor, I really couldn't do this podcast without them. They're a free, easy to use website that will distribute your podcast on anything out there. It's also really good to record and edit podcasts as well. It's very, very easy to use. And so huge shout outs to Anchor. I really appreciate them. And thanks for listening. Alright guys, what's up? We're back and we're gonna go into our spoiler in-depth thoughts on the 1947 movie Miracle on 34th Street. The plot synopsis reads, when a nice old man who claims to be Santa Claus is institutionalized as insane, a young lawyer decides to defend him by arguing in court that he is the real thing. This is directed by George Seaton and written by George Seaton, starring Edmund Gwenn and Maureen O'Hara. And anyway, let's get right into it. August, you want to start with some of your general thoughts on Miracle on 34th Street? Obviously, you kind of said it earlier. It was your favorite Christmas movie, so how about that?
Right. Yeah. Well, so for me, when I think of a Christmas movie, right, and I think of Christmas and the Christmas spirit, I think of feel-good moments. I think of giving. I think of not necessarily Santa and getting gifts, but like what it means Christmas,
Yeah.
And for this movie, I really felt like it tackled all those things and in a pretty straightforward manner, and how it showed a lot of the benefits too of, well, this is the kind of thing that can happen, and if you really believe in the spirit of giving, then it benefits all parties, and I think this movie did a really great job of showing that.
For sure. Yeah. I totally agree. I really loved this movie. This was also my first time watching this movie. I watched it earlier this morning, and I was just smiling ear to ear the entire time.
Same, 100%.
And it is a big shout out reason to Edmund Gwenn. Edmund Gwyn, I don't know how to pronounce his name. I think it's Edmund Gwenn, who plays Kris Kringle. And oh my god, by far the best Santa performance I've ever seen. And he just gives such a feeling of jolly and joy to the screen that every single scene with him is basically perfect, I think. It is just really just incredible. I think where the movie does start to kind of have its faults, is which we'll get into in a bit, is honestly the scenes without him. I think at times they can start to get a little bit contrived and a little weird, or just not weird, but just kind of a little bit poorly written. But every single scene with him is perfection, and it's all due to his performance and the writing of his character. So I do think the writing in general in this movie is really good. We've talked about it in the past on the podcast of two things I've watched recently, of The Elephant Man, a movie, and then Violet Evergarden, a really great anime on Netflix, about kind of the movies where it follows a central character who doesn't really have too much change perhaps throughout it. They're a pretty stagnant in their ways character, and the story really is about how they affect the people around them. And this is obviously a movie about that. Kris Kringle, the just jolliest man alive. Right out of the start of the movie too, though, he mentions like he has like a mission to like convert the mom and the child, and so it's like there you go. I think it's really great to mention as well, like they don't really confirm if he is Santa Claus or not, I like to believe that he is, because he's so 100%. Awesome. I absolutely believe that he is, but I do like that they don't confirm it in like a magical way, The thing that's really impressive about this movie is like how grounded in reality all of it is, which is a big aspect that makes it so enjoyable for kids and adults.
There's no magical, all of a sudden he flies off on a sled or anything like that. Even when it's Christmas Eve, he just has to disappear for a while, That's all you see.
He's just like, you guys know what I gotta do. See ya.
Yeah,
I gotta get ready for my job. Yeah, it's fucking awesome. And it's just so well done, I think. I wanted to also give a huge shout out to the child actor, Natalie Wood, who plays the young girl. and she is
Phenomenal.
awesome in this fucking
Yeah.
movie. Oh my god.
When it comes to child actors too, I've always been kind of, it's a child actor, but like you're right, she did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, we've talked a lot of this podcast as well of great child actors in the past and such like that, and this ranks up among the best. Absolutely, she does such a great job at her scenes of being so stoic in her ways of not believing and such like that is so good. And
but then she still has those aspects of she's still a kid,
yeah,
and
she still has that like magic behind
imagination.
her
That's I'm a monkey, like
yeah. That scene when he's explaining imagination to her when she's all stoic, and hard-headed as usual, and like the
loosens up,
slowly loosening up and like getting into it is incredible for a child actress, and just conveys so much incredible emotion, I think. And she's one of the absolute highlights of this movie for fucking sure. Also, I wanted to talk about the guy character. What's his name? Pulling it up. Fred Gailey.
Talking about the lawyer?
Yeah, Fred Gailey. He was kind of weird. I gotta be honest. I thought he was kind of weird at first. I was not on board with him, and like, because it is that guy kind of trying to almost manipulate a woman into dating him because he's being buddies with the kid. It's like, bruh, anybody can just be like nice to a kid, You should be doing it like out of like the kindness, because you're like a real person who like cares about people, and not because you want to bang this lady.
And he uses it as like a pickup line kind of thing too. Like,
and that's
he definitely tries to be the suave kind of dude.
I think it would have worked a lot better if they did do that, say at the beginning, but then they didn't fall in love. They just ended up becoming good friends.
They just, and then from that, relationship formed.
Exactly. Yeah. I just think they should have stayed away from actually having them end up in a relationship, because even when they did start dating, it felt weirdly sudden, and I was like, hold on, wait, she just called him babe. Like, what is happening?
Yeah. I actually, so when I remember that exact moment too, and then I was also kind of like, oh wow, like what the heck there all of a sudden, because right before she was pretty reluctant still, but then all of a sudden a couple scenes later she's like, in the palm of his hand. And as for the way that he generally acted, I think that that's kind of tough too, just simply because of when the movie was made, and that at the time that the movie was made, that was kind of the, men were supposed to kind of have that role in society.
Well, I mean, like, that's a way to, if you want to justify it in your own head, that's the way to do it, yes. But at the same time, there are depictions of men during those times as well that are well crafted, good people, who act good and aren't just like weirdly, uncomfortable like that, almost like always just kind of vying for sex and being like the man of the house, Like,
I guess
I don't stuff like that. I don't really like to give it a pass on the times, because not only because I've seen proper versions of that during those times, but it's also just like, shitty people are shitty people no matter when they were alive, that type thing,
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily think he was a shitty guy. I really did actually warm up to him in the latter half, especially in those courtroom scenes. I loved, oh my god, a courtroom drama featuring Santa Claus. How the fuck do you make that work? This story is so bizarre. What a weird story. And it just works so well. And it's all because of not only the great performance, like I said, that really anchors the movie down, of Kris Kringle, but seeing all of those scenes with the other people, even though I did mention that it does have a slight to the movie, and sometimes those scenes of seeing these other people, them interacting without Kris Kringle, I think it did work thematically in the movie, And it
Hmm.
wasn't like a big slight to it, like I was saying. Like,
Yeah. So my thing with that I would just like to mention is that without those, the courtroom scenes wouldn't make sense. Like if
oh,
you
for
didn't
sure.
have that background knowledge of like knowing why the judge was, swayed one way or the other, or how a lot of the characters, if we didn't know their backstories like they showed us, then none of that would have made really
Yeah.
any sense. Like,
And
oh, the Supreme he allows the, of Santa, indifferent kind of thing. And it's like, you could argue he could have came to that conclusion regardless, but
mhm.
I don't think he would have.
Yeah, no, and I do totally agree, and that's why I don't think those scenes are bad, because I still did enjoy them and the whole aspect of the movie. I just think certain aspects of each of those could have been written better, purely. And those are like nitpicky things throughout each of those scenes that I just think doesn't elevate this movie to being like a perfect movie. Like, there are faults throughout it with it is a very of the times movie. That's not a fault um to the movie, but it's also not like a good thing about it. It's more so just an
Yeah.
observation, I guess.
I think it was more of a necessary thing that had to happen. And
Yeah, I
yeah,
just think they could
they
have
could
been
have
written better.
maybe done something a little bit better with it.
Yeah,
But
yeah, for sure. And like, it just could have been written better, some of those scenes, but it still worked really, really well. There is one thing, we're kind of jumping all around, but that's what we usually do here, whatever.
sure.
Um, one thing I could say that I didn't have an issue with when I was watching it, but the more I thought about it, I did think it was kind of dumb how the whole plot kind of ended up being wrapped up by this random newsroom guy somehow picking up the one letter that's Chris
Yeah,
Kringle and
and
reading it,
like,
and then he's
oh,
like,
we just
"Oh, we
need to
just
get
want to
rid of
get
these
rid of
letters,
him."
whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Let's get rid of him this way. I think that should have been in a better way of like, they actually are sorting out the Chris Kringle mail, and they see the shit in the news, and they do believe in him, and so they want to contribute to the case and believing him and shit like that. I think
Well,
that would have
see,
been better and more effective.
that's something I actually disagree with you
Okay.
because I think that by having it done the way that they did it, it kind of helps support the fact that is he really Santa? Is he really not? It could just be, pure coincidence that, okay, yeah, this happened, whatever else, but it worked out in the end somehow. However, I just think that plays a little more heavily into okay, well, maybe he really isn't Santa. Maybe he really is just a lunatic, crazy dude. And you had mentioned before how you really liked how, there was never really any actual confirmation that, oh, he is Santa. I think that if they did go that route and say, oh, we believe that he's Santa, um, I think that'd play too hard on the idea of that he really is Santa. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I that's fair for sure, and I do understand that in some aspects, but at the same time, there are, we see lots of people like in the courtroom and just throughout other scenes of people believing in him, like the other lawyer's wife and son who believe in the Santa Claus and shit like that. And then just some other people who believe this guy is Santa Claus in a way. I just think it would have perhaps been better if even if these people were just like, hey, like, this case is going on, and like, let's, I don't know. I guess I'm
Right,
not
but
100% sure. I don't have
well,
a
no, no,
huge
no.
gripe with
So
it,
yeah, so the way I see it, the
but
only
yeah,
people that actually believe that he was really Santa were the kids.
that's fair. Yeah,
Everyone
yeah.
else in the story, even the lawyer, and it's
Hmm.
later, it shows up, at the end of the movie. Uh, it's clear that neither of them believe that he's actually Santa. Well, the
You're right.
wife might, but even then, it's their, they believe in the idea of him being Santa. They don't believe that he himself is Santa, and I think that they made that um, not super clear, but clear enough for an adult to understand. But
Hmm.
then also, from a kid's perspective, yeah, oh, they believe, but as an adult watching it, you've seen all the other reasons and you saw the build and their kind of why they believed to fight the way that they did. And so I don't believe that any of the adults in the show actually believed that he was, but simply they believed in the idea.
Yeah. Oh,
Does that make sense?
that totally makes sense. Yeah. I hadn't really thought about it that way completely, but I agree, and that does kind of make sense. I do kind of. I do think the what's her name? Catherine O'Hare is the actress, but Doris
Mm-hmm.
Walker, Mrs. Walker. I do think that she believed in him. Maybe she was just writing that for the note when she wrote "I believed you" on it, but
Mm-hmm.
I did feel like she believed in him. Um, and I believe in him too. But
Oh, I believe in him.
absolutely, yeah, he's definitely fucking Santa Claus. Come on.
Yeah.
It's awesome. The scene at the beginning I also wanted to talk about, which I think is just hilarious. The scene when he encounters the drunk Santa on the parade float. That whoever that guy is that played that drunk Santa, the voice that he picked out,
I loved it.
That voice that he picked out is hilarious. I could not recreate it anytime.
And the fact that he said the exact same line too, of like how he wanted to stay warm when he was drunk for both him, and then later when the mom showed up, is like hilarious. To me that was awesome.
He was so funny, and it was just really kickstarted it into just some great humor in this movie. Like, like I said, I was smiling a lot in this movie just purely due to the joy that I think the Kris Kringle character brought through his performance and the writing of him, which is so key to the movie. But I was also smiling a lot because there's a lot of great humor in this movie. This movie's really funny. Really funny. Yeah. There were many points throughout where I was seriously laughing out loud.
And it's not like gag humor or anything else either. Yeah. It's like genuine, like, wow, this is great.
Yeah. It really just, the whole idea of a what if type story of what if Santa Claus came to a town of people who didn't believe in him, what would really happen in the real world. And I think that's just an incredible concept to follow, and they do a really good job at really showing how it really is. And that leads into like the corporate side of how they recognize the goodness that this guy's bringing, and then they instantly find a way to monetize it, is right. Like strange, but it feels so authentic to how it would really be. It's just awesome,
Yeah, it's really it's like it's got that a concept too of when everyone's in the Christmas spirit, and instead of the act of, oh, we need to do everything we can so that they buy from our store. And then he brings up the concept of, okay, well, what if you start recommending other places? What if you start, just strictly going after what it is that they want, what they need? And then the people too realize, and then this is a key moment, and I don't know if this is necessarily what would happen in real life, but then like that one woman, how she was like, oh, I'm going to start shopping here forever now because like you guys are so great. And it's like, that's not so far of a stretch that like, but maybe that's true.
I think the stretch part is her going up to the guy and telling him that.
Oh yeah,
I think that is a big stretch right there. But that act though of how that just does affect people, it is real. I think, and that totally makes sense. Something that kind of gets into the dark aspect of this movie. It falls along that side that I'm still honestly not 100% sure about. Not sure where I land on it. Is I was worried the whole time. Is this gonna be like a pro-capitalist movie? Is this gonna be like a really pro-capitalist, like pro-big company type movie? Because we kind of we back 2 episodes ago when we reviewed You've Got Mail, that movie definitely was, and it made me really sour on the last half of it. And this movie, I don't think it was completely.
Well, I think it was. I think it was a bit pro-capitalist.
That's why I'm saying completely.
But I don't think it definitely didn't shine, a negative light on. Well, okay, but it did though too, right? Because you had the what an example of, bad capitalism was, and that was all the first half. And then how they slowly, even then though, for selfish reasons, decided to, oh, we're all of a sudden making more money by doing this thing, so okay, let's do this. So
hmm The thing is with that is
you
like,
might be right, actually. You might be right. Maybe it wasn't, because it still shines them even then in somewhat of a negative light.
yeah, it's interesting. I'm like I said, I'm still not 100% sure where I fall into it. It's like those scenes I think are key to, the super important scenes of them realizing the good that comes from this Santa Claus character and the act that he's doing, and then they find a way to monetize and capitalize on it. And I think that's super key in the main theme of the movie, or one of the main themes of the movie that it talks about, which I believe is like the idea behind a true act of goodness is infectious and can really
Mm-hmm.
breed good actions and good ideals. When someone
Right.
does something that is a true good act with the truest of intentions, it benefits, and it's for the right thing. And like it shows that yes, that ends up being the right thing because they are making more money, and making more money isn't inherently a bad thing,
Right.
but the way that it does it, because it's fucking Macy's, this multi-million-dollar company, and the
Right.
way that the guy is doing it, um, it does make it feel weird, but I think it's key in a way to the movie because it shows that
Definitely.
even these shithead conglomerates, are affected by true goodness in a way,
Yeah.
which I think is a nice act and feels good. They do
It's the
definitely,
idea that when you do good, you receive good. If that
yeah,
makes sense.
yeah. They do definitely, how do I say it? Um, they make Macy. I don't know his full name, but Macy, the
Sure.
guy who made
Yeah.
Macy's. They do make him out to seem like a great guy that people love, and I just think I don't like that.
I don't
That
know that they did that though, because I mean, remember when he was when he was on the stand
well, I
even,
meant I meant
and
no,
he
you go.
was
Sorry.
still like, it showed you that his thought process, and his
hmm
thoughts were, oh shit, like I'm gonna be in big trouble if I deny the,
Well,
Santa Claus. And so then he then decided to say, yeah, I believe he's Santa Claus.
yeah. No,
But
that's the
even
thing.
then
Is
it was
like,
for like selfish reasons.
no, that's totally true. I meant more so like I do think they do paint him to be like a shitty person to us maybe, but the fact that like so many people in the movie and like the characters loved him and thought he was just like this amazing guy,
Mm. Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
that aspect I was kind of sour on and thought was a little
You
bit
believe in
weird.
what the media tells you.
Yeah, yeah. And I wasn't a huge fan of seeing that aspect of it, but at the same time,
I think it made sense
like
though.
it made sense. Like I said, I want to reiterate this from what I said earlier. This movie is just that such realistic approach to what
Oh
would
yeah.
happen if this happened, and I think that's just so admirable for a Christmas movie, and a feel good movie, because there's lots of realistic depictions in movies of like what would realistically happen in war, what would realistically happen in a relationship, or geopolitical climate shit. I don't know. And like the
Sure.
horrors of that and the horrors of humanity and relationships. And it
Hmm.
feels really good to watch a movie that feels so realistically authentic to how it would be, while
Hmm.
also still ending and giving you that really joyous feeling about not
It
only
kind of
about
it kind
life,
of
but about like your love and relationship to others and such. And I really admire that.
Yeah, I really like the fact that it paints the general people as a general good, right? Like, I know you see a lot of times, a lot of themes in movies that the 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 general person is generally bad,
hmm
But in this movie, it paints the general people as, yeah, sure, they're doing these things out of um, uh, greed, not greed, but something similar to that word.
Yeah, basically.
But then at the same time, they're still, the general people, they have good in them, right? And it's again, I go back to the woman that walked up to the guy and said, "Oh, I'm gonna start shopping here, now." And that paints the general public as a general good, which I think is awesome.
I agree for sure, and it shows that even in those bad characters, it shows it builds upon another theme that the movie touches on of like everyone does have good in them, like you were saying,
Right.
and that true acts of goodness, even if someone is bad and really trying to do bad things, true acts of goodness are infectious and they do prevail, and they ultimately are the better option, like, yes, it is making them more money and it kind of feels shitty in that way, but like,
it ends up being the right decision.
Like,
regardless.
it's like morally is actually the right decision. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's great, It's just an absolute feel good movie. Another person I wanted to bring up was the psychiatrist. Mr. Sawyer was his name. The guy who gave him the evaluation at Macy's.
Yeah. The baddie guy. The bad guy.
So fucking slimy, dude.
Oh yeah.
He is so good as a bad person. Oh my god. His exaggerated expressions and his gross.
The way he's always
face.
like fucking like his eyebrow.
Dude, the little
He's
awesome.
just like,
oh
like,
my
come on.
god. And he gives a really good performance, that guy, I think. And like the scenes where he's like shaken and feeling really stressed, and like the power dynamics and such like that he displays.
Can't handle the goodness. He can't. Oh god, he can't take it.
Yeah. It
makes him uncomfortable.
Hilarious. When Kris Kringle bashes him on the head with the cane, I'm like, get his ass!
Yeah.
Get that motherfucker! It is awesome, and he has the big old lump on his head. Hilarious,
Yeah.
He does such a good job at playing a real slimy guy, and he is one of those characters who isn't affected by the good intentions, because he stays
He's
bad
affected
and
by
stays
his own bad actions.
Yeah.
Because every one of his bad actions almost always has a consequence. I think of when he puts his hat on in the mall and he goes, "Oh," because of the bump that's still on his head.
Yeah.
Right when he's in the smack in the middle. It's just like that kind of stuff. It's just like karma irony.
Yeah, for real. He does such a good job at just playing a gross, slimy little shit, and it's awesome. It's so good. And same with Macy. He does a really good job at being this like real, almost larger than life corporate conglomerate asshole who is so good at tricking people into thinking that he's a good guy. He really just has such a charisma to him that makes it feel like I understand why these people like him, but I know that he's a piece of shit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's just like that's the aspect of like that makes me almost like sad and angry. Like, I wish these people saw that this guy was just another asshole corporate shill,
Mm-hmm.
But
but at the same time, that kind of ruins the image.
It works
too.
great.
And and I think the theme too is the not just the fact that the public sees him as a good person, but so much as the public sees their corporation as it's the spirit of Christmas, right? It's the spirit of giving and not necessarily whatever. And I think that's what was important. But yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah. I wanted to touch on another child actor who doesn't give a good performance by any means. He gives a pretty fucking bad performance.
Are you talking about the little boy that goes onto the stand?
Yes, he gives a bad performance, but God, is that scene fucking hilarious still. The little toodaloos to his dad. The fucking grin that he has when he knows he's just like destroying his dad's chances is so fucking hilarious. That's one of those chances like I can tell it's so clearly a bad performance, but like I don't care because the scene is so good still,
Yeah.
It's just like the whole concept of the scene is so hilarious. And
so this is kind of a weird thing to bring up, and
Uh-huh.
I doubt anyone else would have noticed this, but I thought it was kind of funny too when they took the kid off the stand. It was like he like swung him around in the air, and then
Really?
like his feet were up super high too. Yeah, and I was just like, holy crap! And for whatever reason, that just kind of like made me chuckle, or laugh, or whatever. It's just the way he like fucking like threw him off. And
I
I
didn't
was just
notice
like, what
that.
the
Yeah.
hell?
That is funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Um, thing I wanted to say about, I do think the idea behind the judge being influenced by the greedy politician, I think
Right.
works and is really good. But
Uh-huh.
I wish they didn't include him like visibly changing his expression and like his thought in the
Mm.
middle of the courtroom while looking at that guy.
Like it
It's
was
like
pretty obvious,
it's like
what.
everything else in the movie felt like such a honest, realistic depiction of these people and characters and what would go on. And then
Yeah,
it
he was
gets
very
to him.
animated in
Yeah,
in
it
his
was
face.
like,
You're right about that.
bro, like hide it a little bit. Like you can
Yeah,
still
like a
have
judge
that
is supposed to be indifferent,
yeah,
right?
you can you can still have that interesting dynamic in those behind the scenes of it and such. But when he's so
Hmm.
blatant about it in the courtroom, that is when my suspension of disbelief does get a little bit broken. Where I'm like, come on, I wish they did that a little bit better, you know.
Hmm.
But like every other
I know.
thing
I
I've
didn't.
been
I
saying,
didn't hate it though. Like
yeah, that's
when
the thing.
because
It's
I
like,
remember the whole time it was just it kind of gave the impression that the judge really did want what was best, and he wanted whatever he could do. And yeah, he was being influenced by the politician, whatever else. But like you can tell that ideally he doesn't want to be influenced by the politician.
mm-hmm,
Does that make sense? And
for sure.
and so because of that, and I don't know if that would have been able to have been portrayed had he not been as expressive as he was.
Mm-hmm.
But
And that's
yeah,
and that's totally fair.
I
It's one of
also
those
wouldn't
things.
have hated it if he was, as a judge, a little more unbiased.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think he did do a great job at the dynamic of how he wants to be this impartial judge, but then he's being influenced by this greedy politician, and that idea that it actually ends up being for the good, I think is a really interesting dynamic that poses some interesting questions of like, it's this greedy, shitty politician, who's manipulating the judge into his own ways, but like it ends up being for a good, correct cause. So I think
Right.
that causes it just brings a really interesting aspect to the movie that is so impressive. It just
Yeah.
This movie is so impressive top to bottom from not only the time that it was made, like making a Christmas movie in that time and being so just humanistic and realistic with its approach is kind of mind blowing in a way. It's
Uh-huh.
I brought it up with Sound of Metal. A move. It feels good to watch a movie that's like, wow, I've never seen anything like that, and this feels kind of like that, honestly, because it's just such a batshit crazy fucking idea.
Mm-hmm.
It's just an absurd plot, and it's like there's so many ways where it could have so easily gone horribly wrong and just been so bad, but they really teeter that line pretty perfectly a lot of the movie, I think, to being not only super heartfelt, super warming, super jolly, but also having really interesting themes of greed, capitalism, and just human relationships, which
Mm-hmm.
is cool. It's really impressive.
Something else I wanted to mention, and kind of to shift gears a little bit,
Yeah.
is that the black and white color, right? When I think of like a really awesome black and white movie, initially I think of like The Lighthouse, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's where it's just done so well, and you almost feel like you can see colors by the end of the movie. For this movie, especially right at the beginning when he's talking to the shop clerk about the reindeer. It could have just been my imagination, honestly. But in that moment, I felt like the black and white was just so crisp and clean and looked so good. And that from that scene on, I was like, oh, this looks awesome. Like I can see the colors without needing to see them. And I feel
I
like that first scene did a really good job of like starting that.
I do partially agree. There is something I black and white photography is a true art. Absolutely.
Right.
There's lots of things of seeing really beautiful colors on screen and how those colors interact with each other. But there's something even more impressive when it's just dealing with black, white, and gray, and all the different shades of gray that you can convey and such like that, and the meanings behind them is so impressive. And I think this movie does it well a lot of the times, but I don't think it does it well all the time.
I think, yeah. So when they were indoors, I think that the black and white colors weren't as great.
I agree.
I think, though, a lot of the scenes when they were outdoors, they did an excellent job.
Yeah. It wasn't like the movie wasn't super like crazily directed, There's no really like impressive shots in it. Like you're saying with the black and white cinematography, it does feel great in certain scenes visually, but that's more so due to the cinematographer, I think, and the colors of it. And I think there's lots of great scenes. A shot that really stuck out to mind in me, which was near the end after the courtroom when Chris is standing outside. He has like a really harsh shadow over top of him, and Mrs. Walker is coming out to him to like congratulate him on like winning the case and such like that. And then then they like both invite each other over for dinner and such. And I thought that was one of the more visually striking scenes to me. And I do agree that first scene was awesome as well. Because I not only for how visually beautiful it is, but I didn't know anything about this movie going into it. I actually didn't even read the plot synopsis. I seriously knew nothing about this movie. Yeah.
Same.
And so when it's quite literally Santa walking around town in just normal outfit, I found that just instantly hilarious, and like his performance, I've talked about it so much, but it was just so strong, from the very first scene that you see him, even just like the whole beginning of where it's rolling the credits. I wish they didn't have all of those credits on the screen the whole time, because that shot of him just walking down the street is awesome. A really cool shot, I think. Not anything like massively impressive, of course, but just a really well shot scene, I think, that I wish wasn't covered up with text. But back to the cinematography. Yes, I do think it is really beautiful for a lot of the movie. There are a number of scenes
and I think are pretty drab. Think of it too as like when it was filmed as well. And given the age of the movie, I think they did a great job.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. It's nothing spectacular visually. It's not like insanely impressive movie, I would say, on a technical aspect, but it does have some really strong moments visually. But the movie ultimately is really carried by this beautiful script and incredible performances from all of these characters, And we haven't even really talked about Mrs. Walker at all. She does a really great job in this as well. Catherine O'Hara plays her, and she's incredible as this person who really doesn't believe in fantasies and Santa Claus and all these different things. And you get
she has a very, very one way of thinking.
Yeah, and you get a real understanding, I think, of why she thinks that sort of way, and not a full understanding of like the acts that caused her to be that way, but you get a real feeling of.
She just briefly mentioned something about a Prince Charming, but honestly, that's all we need.
Exactly. Through the tiny little references and her incredible performance, it really adds a layer of depth to the character that was really interesting. And also seeing her kind of loosen up throughout the end and really start to believe in Chris was a really beautiful thing to watch. And
I thought it was really romantic there at the end when she had mentioned how, I told her that, and then they kissed right after, and it's like, that was good. I enjoyed that quite a bit.
I agree. Yeah. Like I said, even though I wish they didn't end up in the relationship, her and the guy, his name like Mr. Gailey, that end scene was really beautiful and did feel good. I just wish their relationship came together in a more authentic,
more natural,
just in less of a weird way.
Yeah.
But
No, I thinking back, I agree with you.
Mhm.
I do.
Yeah. Right on. I'm trying to think about anything else that I want to bring up. You got anything else you wanna we'll kind of say final thoughts, I guess. Anything else you want to finally bring up about this movie, or just like a final seance to it, I guess?
I mean, no, I've said everything that all my thoughts, everything I had to say about it. But yeah, honestly, great movie, great Christmas movie. If you were like me and you hadn't watched it until like earlier tonight, well,
Same.
you should watch it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't think I got much else to say. It's just such a jolly good movie that's just really impressively made.
Yeah, like
and
I
I
said
have so
earlier,
much love for it.
everything they would want or hope for in a Christmas movie.
Absolutely. And this is going to be a Christmas favorite of mine for years and years to come. I'm definitely going to be rewatching this. I really did love it. There are lots of nitpicky things throughout it on a scene by scene basis that I discussed a lot. So I don't think it's like a perfect movie, but I'll attach my rating to it. I'm going to give this a 4 stars out of 5, which kind of comes out to be like an 8 out of 10, basically. I think it's a really, really strong movie that's just really nice.
Mm-hmm.
How about you? What about you? Want to attach a rating to it?
Yeah, so I give it 4.5 stars.
Okay.
Solid 9 out of 10, 100%. And
Right on.
it's I mean, it's not my favorite movie of all time, but it's without a doubt one of at least my favorite Christmas movie. So that's gotta say something.
Right on. Nice. Anyway, that's gonna wrap up our review for the 1947 Miracle on 34th Street. We're gonna move on into our user comment section. Didn't really have anybody write in this week, as per usual. So people who watch this podcast, fucking write in, because I know people are watching.
Mm-hmm.
I know I see the views on this podcast. Anybody can participate in this conversation. I love people to write in and talk about it, and we will talk about any and all people that write in on your response.
And we love hearing everyone's opinions and views too, even if they're not the same as ours.
Exactly.
Maybe you hated that movie. We want to hear about it. We want to talk about it.
Yeah, we always welcome it. But since Nick wasn't able to hop on, I did have him message me his responses. So here we go. For his top 3 Christmas movies, he had Rare Exports, A Christmas Story, and then The Muppets Christmas Carol. So I've never heard of Rare Exports. I'm gonna have him maybe do a little, just talk about that just a tiny bit maybe on the next episode, because I've never heard of this movie. I looked it up. It looked very strange. It was like a 2010 Christmas movie. I don't know. It kind of looked like maybe a thriller. Seriously, no idea about this movie. But if you're a fan of Rare Exports, let us know, because obviously Nick is a fan of this movie. And I plan to check it out. But then the other 2, A Christmas Story, obvious, classic, awesome movie. I haven't rewatched it in many years. I really should, just to see if it holds up for me personally. But yeah, really, really enchanting movie. And then The Muppets Christmas Carol. So I finally actually just watched. I didn't bring it up on the notable watches section, but I did watch this movie for the first time a few days ago. I loved it so much. It's such a good movie. Michael Caine is so perfect in it. The music's awesome. It's just such a nice movie, and I'm really glad Nick put it on his list. Because it's just a beautiful movie. You got anything to say? Have you seen any of those 3?
No, actually, I haven't. So
you haven't seen A Muppets Christmas Carol either?
I have.
That's
I haven't seen Muppets Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So my thing is, honestly, I haven't seen most Christmas movies.
Yeah, same here.
I haven't seen a lot.
Yeah, same.
I grew up watching a lot of Hallmark around Christmas time, just because that's what my parents used to watch, and so a lot of the classics, a lot of the really good Christmas movies, I had to watch elsewhere.
Nice. Yeah.
And so I just haven't gotten around to it yet.
Right on. Yeah. And then for his thoughts on Miracle on 34th Street, he wrote, this is all he wrote about it. I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was a really boring commercial for Macy's. And
I mean,
I understand it. Yeah,
yeah,
throughout it,
makes sense.
I thought it kind of, especially literally the title shot. It shows like the Miracle on 34th Street, and there's a big old Macy's sign in the background.
Giant,
Like,
yeah.
It definitely felt
or the
that way.
imposing Macy's store and how it's
Yeah.
just like fucking 100 stories tall, like just
And
massive.
That's totally fair, and I thought that way at first when I was watching it and kind of throughout it, but the way that it ended and the way that it kind of wrapped it up and with its themes and story beats, I don't think it was that, and I think it actually ended up.
I definitely
working
didn't
for
see
me.
that as a main theme at all, but I could see where he comes from.
It definitely probably was very funded by Macy's at the time. You know, I'm sure they funded this movie and were very
Macy's,
happy
and
with
what was the other store? It was one I hadn't heard of
Gimbals.
before.
I'd never heard of
Gimbals. Yeah, so.
But yeah, it definitely kind of feels that way a little bit. I won't lie, but it wasn't a huge thing, and I don't necessarily think it was, like I said, because of the way the story beats ended up playing out. And then my dad also messaged me him. Shout out my dad whenever someone doesn't write it on the podcast. He's always got me to fill in, but he sent me his top 3 Christmas movies. He obviously went with Die Hard, and then second Love Actually, and then Elf. Obviously, I agree with him very hard on the Die Hard and Elf, both classic great movies. And Love Actually. I actually thought about putting Love Actually on my list as well. I love that movie. I'm a huge sucker for rom-coms and anthology movies, and that falls into both of those perfect little categories. And huge shout out to Love Actually. I just think that movie's super cute and super
like
fun.
father, like son.
Yeah, basically. What can I say? We have similar movie taste. That's
what
the
are
way
you gonna
she
do?
goes. Yeah. he also added just because I want to throw this in as well because he texted me it. An underrated Christmas movie called Mixed Nuts. I've never fucking heard of this movie.
It sounds like a pretty funny movie.
I have no idea what. I've never heard of this movie, but it stars Steve Martin in it, who's really funny. So, hey, if you're out there and you're a fan of Mixed Nuts, let me know, and maybe I'll check it out. Because obviously, I guess my dad is a big fan of this movie.
I mean, who isn't a fan of Mixed Nuts, you know?
For sure, exactly. I always am. Anyway. Right on. That's gonna fucking wrap up our Christmas episode, guys. We're gonna talk about next episode, which is gonna be airing 2 weeks, the first week of January. Nick and I will be discussing our top 10 movies of 2020, and then we will also do an in-depth spoiler review on the new movie Wonder Woman 84, which will be coming out on Christmas Day. Excited to check that out. So if you want to participate in that conversation, remember at In the Closet WJN, Instagram or Twitter, DM us your top 10 or top whatever movies, favorite movies, least favorite movies of the year that you want us to talk about, and also whatever your thoughts and review is on Wonder Woman 84. You can also check me out at JacobNestor568, Letterboxd, Instagram or Twitter. I'm always posting shit on Letterboxd, for if you want to keep updated on there. I'll obviously be back in first week of January with my whole monthly watch list that I'll be discussing. Check out the podcast, Anchor, Spotify, any other podcast shares out there. Also on YouTube, you'll find my Closet Quickies there. I'm actually hoping to have a short film out by the first week of January as well, so I'll talk about it more when I actually release it, but hopefully that should be out, so you'll be able to catch that there and any other random shit I've filmed. So that'll all obviously be in the description as per usual. August, you got anything else you want to shout out, social medias or anything?
Oh, no, I'm good. But all I have to say is Jacob 100% knows more about movies than anyone else in this world. Period. Totally unbiased.
Totally unbiased, and it's not because August is like my brother that he's saying that. But for real though, also just want to give a huge shout out before you leave to August for hopping on here, because Nick did bail. I'm gonna call him out on it next podcast, but Nick did bail on me last second for this, for understandable reasons. But at the same time, go fuck yourself, Nick. But huge shout out to August for who literally wanted to go to sleep at 8 p.m. and it's now at 9 p.m. when we're finishing up this episode. So I appreciate him for staying up, watching the movie, and hopping on here, because it was a great discussion. And I'm totally excited to have you back, because I know you're going to hop on future episodes for sure.
For sure. Yeah. Can't wait.
Absolutely.
Closing statement for me. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
Of course. Merry Christmas. Happy Holidays to everyone. Thanks so much for listening. And yeah, see you.